What's up, everybody? So since the 2024 Women's College Basketball March Madness Tournament bracket was revealed earlier today, let's make some picks for the bracket challenge. Going to be basing these picks off of vibes and not that much analysis. But here we go. 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Okay, so first up, we got Regional 1. We got South Carolina as the overall #1 seed. I know that they're undefeated and playing really well throughout the season, so I'm going to go with them to get to the round of 32. North Carolina versus Michigan State. Looks like an interesting matchup. Going to go with North Carolina to get to the second round. Oklahoma versus Florida Gulf Coast. Going to go with the Sooners. We got Indiana versus Fairfield. I know that Fairfield was petitioning to get to be a top 25 ranked team earlier this season. So that was pretty cool. And I think they're like undefeated or only have lost one game. So let's go with upset. Fairfield over Indiana. Why not? We got Nebraska versus Texas A&M here. I'm going to go with Nebraska to get to the second round. And then Oregon State versus Eastern Washington. Going to go with the Beavers. Okay, here we go with the round of 32 for Regional 1. Gotta go with South Carolina in the Battle of the Carolinas. That would be an awesome matchup. I would think so. Just with like the state rivalry. And yeah. We got Oklahoma versus Fairfield. I think unfortunately this is where Fairfield run ends. Going to go with the Sooners. We got Nebraska, Oregon. Going to go with Oregon Beavers. And then, I forgot this last region in the Regional 1. So we got Marquette versus Ole Miss. Going to go with Marquette to get the upset. And then Notre Dame versus Kent State. Got Notre Dame. Going to go with Notre Dame to beat Marquette to reach the Sweet 16 to go against Oregon State. And go with Notre Dame to get to the Elite 8 versus South Carolina. And gotta go with South Carolina to get to the Final Four. Okay, going to Regional 2. We got Iowa, the Hawkeyes with Caitlin Clark. She's been sensational this season. Shout out to her. And the Hawkeyes, going to go with them to get to the round of 32. We got West, Virginia, and Princeton. Going to go with the upset here. Let's go with Princeton, the Tigers. Okay, we got Colorado versus Drake in the 5-12 matchup. Going to go with Colorado to move on. We got Kansas State and Portland. I think this will be a close game, but I think Kansas State will find a way to get the W. We got Louisville and Middle Tennessee State University. Going to go with the Cardinals. We got LSU and Rice. Gotta go with LSU. They're too talented. And then we got Creighton versus UNLV. Going to go with Creighton to get to the second round. And then UCLA versus CA Baptist. Going to go with the Bruins. Alright. Here we go. Iowa versus Princeton. Going to go with Iowa. The Hawkeyes to get to the Sweet 16. Colorado versus Kansas State. This is a tough matchup to pick from. But going to go with Kansas State to get to the Sweet 16. We got Louisville versus LSU. I could see the upset here, but going to go with LSU. And then Creighton versus UCLA. Going to go with UCLA. All right, so we got the Sweet 16 matchups. Iowa versus Kansas State. Going to go with Iowa to get to the Elite 8 versus LSU. And then between Iowa and LSU, gotta go with the Iowa Hawkeyes to get to the Final Four. We got Regional number 3. USC is the #1 seed in this one. So going to go with them to get the second round. Kansas versus Michigan. Let's go. Going to go with the Kansas Jayhawks to get to the second round. We got Baylor versus Vanderbilt or Columbia, I believe, in the play-in game. Going to go with Baylor to get to the second round. Marshall versus Virginia Tech. Going to go with the Virginia Tech. We got Auburn/Arizona versus Syracuse. Let's go with the upset. Let's go with Auburn or Arizona to get to the second round. UConn versus Jackson State. Got to go with the Huskies. Gino Auriemma. Shout out to Paige Beckers. We got Duke versus Richmond. Going to go with Duke to get to the second round, and Ohio State. All right, second round matchups. We got USC versus Kansas. As much as this pains me, gotta go with USC. They have a freshman named Juju Watkins who is playing phenomenally this season, especially as a freshman, just dominating. Shout out to her. We got Baylor versus Virginia Tech. Going to go with the upset here. Let's go with Baylor, the Bears. We got UConn versus Auburn / Arizona. Going to go with UConn. And then Duke versus Ohio State. Going to go with the upset here. Let's go with Duke. All right. Sweet 16 matchups. We got USC versus Baylor. Going to go with USC. UConn versus Duke. Going to go with UConn. And then to get to the Final Four, I got UConn Huskies. Okay. We got Regional 4. Texas is the #1 seed here. Going to go with them to get to the second round. We got Alabama versus Florida State. Let's go with Alabama. We got Utah versus South Dakota State. Going to go with Utah. UC Irvine versus Gonzaga. Let's go with Gonzaga. We got Tennessee versus Green Bay. Going to go with the upset here. Let's go with Green Bay. Actually, I'm going to switch it. Going to go with Tennessee over Green Bay. Yeah. We got NC State versus Chattanooga. Going to go with NC State. We got Iowa State versus Maryland. Going to go with Maryland to get to the upset and go to the second round. We got Stanford versus Norfolk State. Going to go with Stanford. Okay, round of 32. Going to go with Texas over Alabama. Utah over Gonzaga. Tennessee over NC State. And Stanford over Maryland. Okay, Sweet 16 matchups. Going to go with Utah to pull off the upset against Texas. And Tennessee to not pull off the upset. We're going with Stanford to get to the Elite 8 matchup against Utah. And go with Stanford to get to the Final Four. All right, Final Four matchups. Here we go. We got first matchup, South Carolina versus Stanford. Going to go with South Carolina. And then on the other side, Iowa versus UConn. Going to go with Iowa. And in the championship game between South Carolina and Iowa, I'm going to go with South Carolina. And there we go. Tiebreaker, let's go with 105. South Carolina is champion. Let me know what you guys' picks are for the Women's March Madness Tournament bracket in the comments. And let the madness begin.